that was the story. This is the photo I then ended up with. Now, the bit that I wanted to talk about tonight is cropping. Now, the first thing there's two aspects to cropping. There's a practical side and there's a storytelling side. And first of all, I want to talk about the notion of the practical aspect of cropping, because a lot depends on how the photo is going to be used. You can create a great photo, but if it doesn't fit into the place it's being used. So for example, if you want it to go on a magazine cover, that's probably got to be portrait or square. If you're wanting it to go on the banner of Facebook, it's got to be much more landscape, a much wider image. If you want it on Instagram, it's got to be square. If you want it on a postcard, it's got to be a 2:3 ratio. And postcards are 6x4 inches generally, thereabouts. And then there's another aspect which I found out the hard way, which is if it's getting printed, if you are printing it on a postcard or if you are printing it for a CD cover, then you also need to have what's known as a bleed, which is a 3mm bleed around the edge of the photo. And that's basically, when they're printing, they can't guarantee it's going to go right to the edge. There might be a fraction a little bit here or there. So they insist that your picture goes over the edge of where it should be printed by 3mm all the way round. And that's giving you this safety margin. Now that's all very well, but if you've already taken the photo in camera to exactly the dimensions you want, and then suddenly you lose 3mm coming in, that can throw the whole image out, and what you sort of designed to put what you thought was perfection suddenly isn't perfect anymore. So when you're doing, if you've got any sense that these photos, the photo you're taking is ever going to be used anywhere, then step back, take it bigger and slightly wider than you actually need to. And it's a little, I mean, to begin with, when you're taking photos, you're learning how to make it look as good as you can in the camera as it is. But you have to have this extra layer when you're thinking about printing it, which is, how can I just make sure that I'm not going to lose an important part of it? So there's that side of it. So what I want to do now is just to sort of show you how that works with this. So if I'll just open this with Photoshop and take you into here. So this then is the photo. Now this photo as it is, as I say, kind of actually there's a lot of space around it, and in general terms I wouldn't actually present it this way. So if I take the crop tool, what I will probably do is something more like, and this that kind of sits a little bit more comfortably. I might nudge it a millimeter to the left or right, but now the picture sits comfortably within the frame. There's probably, again, you could take a little bit of bleed off that and you could still be okay. It becomes interesting, the notion of cropping your image. Play with it. How far in can you go and still make sense of it? Maybe I can crop closer like that. Yeah, that's still not too bad. What if I come in even closer? Well, I can come to, say, here. Now we've got everybody in the photo. We've lost the plant. Maybe that wasn't so important, but I quite like the plant. We don't have the reflections in the sand. This is purely about the people. Maybe we're kind of losing it a bit here. And obviously, of course, if I sort of then, come in here, we've lost bits all over the place. So great thing about digital is you have the undo button. So Control Z, undo, 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 undo. So this is great. I can, excuse me one sec. So to think then about the crop, having given myself plenty of space here allows me to do variations. So like I say, I've already shown you what it might look like on a postcard cropped in a bit. But supposing then you wanted to do a kind of banner for the head of the website or your Facebook page, You can then bring it up, and then if I crop it there, actually I probably just went a bit too high because I lost the top of the guy's shaker there. So bring it, keep a bit above the shaker and bring it to the bottom of the chair and the stands, and probably something like that. And then that's not a bad Facebook banner. You know, we've lost the reflections, but that's less important on the social media. The reflections are really good in the big printed, you know, when you print it up to A2, you want to have the reflections, you want it, but then you're designing it or cropping it in a different way. But for a Facebook banner to say, here's the band, this is what you know, it's still saying everything it needs to say. Alternatively, you might want a square crop. So if I just, so that's about 300 millimeters. I can move this to, now where do I want? I don't want her foot cut out of it. I want her foot in, and we'll lose a little bit of the plant, but now we have a square image. And the square image, absolutely perfect for Instagram and quite a lot of other online formats. Likewise, I mean, for that matter, if this was, if you needed it as in a circular kind of way, because it was going to end up as an avatar on Facebook, then they all fit in there, apart from we lose the leg over there, but that's not too bad. So, square format, banner format, standard kind of postcard kind of format. These can all work with this image, and this image was designed specifically with the idea that this could be used on posters on the website and sent to brochures and magazines. So it really is worth thinking, how is the photo going to be used when you're setting up something like this? Now, I mean, the Cafe Largo went a stage further with this, which is when they wanted to sort of promote the fact that they were doing a tea dance, they wanted to concentrate in specifically on the couple doing the dance. So at this point, what they were able to do is just crop in say like that, and now you just have the dancers on the beach, and you know, that looks quite cool. Now within this, I'd say I could do with a little bit more space on the right as I'm looking at it. It feels just a little bit too close in with that. Now, part of the problem with that is if I give it the space I want, then you can see I've ended up with part of the chair in it. But I'm using Photoshop. There are other programs out there. GIMP is a free one. It's not one I've used, but I've heard a lot of good things about it. But it's free. Photoshop costs me about £10 a month for a subscription. You can spend years learning how to use Photoshop. I'm aware that I barely scratch the surface with what it's capable of, but it is capable of a lot of things. And one of the things I do love is the healing tool. And what that allows me to do is if I paint over this little bit of chair, it will actually take the information from around the bits of sea and then actually sort of fill it in for me. So I've got a bit of chair leg down there in the reflections, so I remove that. Now, that's a very quick thing. It's not absolutely perfect. There's a few blurry bits, but I could tidy that up. But I could now maybe just pull that in a little bit more like that. And I'd say that's a much nicer crop. There's room to breathe on either side, but at the same time, we've just got the couple where we want them. So that's the notion of cropping in terms of practical side of cropping. But there is also the notion of cropping as in where's the story. If you found this useful, let your friends know and hit subscribe.